Introduction. Also known as pirates. I'm also known as the world government of all heavens and boundaries, regardless of whether the original work is determined to be male or female. This book is set as male, and between flowers is changed to between months. All the other worlds involved in this book do not exist in the Kingdom of China. All the worlds involved in this book, including the One Piece, are parallel worlds, which must be somewhat different from the original work. Please consider this book as a parallel spacetime of the One Piece world, and some aspects may be ambiguous. Please do not dwell too much on it. Crossing the world of pirates, rebirth Lord Im, control the world government, sit on the throne of the void, obtain a cosmic star map, and gaze into the vast sea of stars. Gather all combat, military, financial, and resources, open the star gate, conquer all worlds, and break through the limits of dominance. How to choose between joining or destroying. Scope of involvement in Wanjie. Japanese anime, Conquered World. Cabannery of Armor City, Blade of Ghost Destruction, Attack Giant, Slaying Crimson Eyes, Zero Demon, Naruto. Sin Under the Sunshine, 2, is created by a fellow Chinese scholar named, Master of Chinese Studies. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Due to Joseph's words, Gyro had to come forward and explain, allowing him, who was originally the meeting host, to enter the meeting early to express his opinions, which naturally made Gyro feel dissatisfied. Originally, I only served as the moderator of the meeting, expressing my opinions at the last minute. Now, my early statement will inevitably put me at a disadvantage in the situation. However, the Navy and Army, who were supposed to be the main force, instead watched the play on the sidelines, which made Gyro slightly dissatisfied with Joseph, and naturally gave rise to a different kind of interest in the behavior of the Navy and Army watching from the sidelines. However, as a top civil servant, Gyro is different from ordinary people. Since the Navy and Army are pretending to be confused, then I will directly call the names and make them retreat without a chance. After thinking about it, Gyro said, "Everyone, this plan is for the Navy and Army staff to directly upload the 5 stars. The 5 stars have instructed me to be responsible for convening this meeting. Since the Navy and Army have reported the 5 old stars, it indicates that they must have a fairly comprehensive plan. It's better to wait until everyone has expressed their opposition opinions and let the 2 staff members from the Navy and Army staff explain it to you. If the 2 representatives Navy and Army staff cannot handle everyone's doubts properly, then this meeting can only be temporarily put on hold. However, I believe that since the Navy and Army dare to report, they must be prepared. Is that right, Lieutenant General Xia Wensen?" Gyro did not point to the Army but instead directly pointed to the Navy, which is not unfounded. For world government officials, an army that can expand territory and plunder resources is naturally favored by them. On the other hand, due to the prevalence of justice in the Navy, it is natural and the government is mostly dirty. Even the Navy, which is mostly cold-blooded like the staff, has been angered. Perhaps for ordinary people, the Navy is more trustworthy and respected, but senior officials still lack trust in the Navy. Xia Wensen naturally understood, but also had no choice. Although the justice of the Navy made it the largest violent institution in the original world government system, the prevalence of various forms of justice has also made world governments maintain cautious skepticism towards the Navy. With the expansion of the Army and police forces, this suspicion did not disappear with the growth of other checks and balances, but rather became more cautious. The reason why the Navy Staff Department has developed such a cold-blooded plan this time is not only due to the importance of the Combine membrane, but also because it has expressed loyalty to the world government. The Army has already expressed loyalty by expanding its territory, while the Navy, thinking about this, General Zavinson couldn't help but take a deep breath. The conflict between the top echelons of the Navy and the world government has left the Navy's treatment far behind other departments in the current system. So we had to take out the staff's targeted plan in the file package in advance and prepare to speak. The Ministry of Justice opposes it, and laws cannot be trampled upon. Laws are the cornerstone of government rule. It should be noted that under the guidance of the government, we have just revised and passed the Law on the Rights and Interests of People in Other Worlds, which clearly stipulates the rights and obligations of people in World 1. Regardless of the purpose, this so-called Kaba's internal livelihood plan is not legal. Once the so-called voluntary principle can be applied to people from other worlds, can it be inferred that both the franchised and non-franchised countries of Blue Star can also apply this so-called voluntary principle. When it comes to the word voluntary, Dr. Farr emphasized his tone, and everyone present also showed different expressions. Some sneered, some were puzzled, and some didn't take it seriously. I did not see any legal authorization in the Cabane regeneration plan, and the military's plan did not mention how the definition of voluntary is defined. I hope Your Excellency the Chairman and everyone present understand that from the moment governments around the world revise laws, please show the respect that laws should have. Jiro was about to speak when suddenly a CP burst in from outside. Your Excellency Chairman, I can reach your phone number. Jiro looked at the secretary beside him expressionlessly and said, "Look who called, hang him up." The secretary immediately walked out to pick up the phone. Worm. I am First Secretary Newman. Okay, I know, but Your Excellency the Chairman asked me to hang up the phone. I understand the importance of this matter, and I think you can call the office. Okay. Then the secretary said to CP, even without this meeting, you can't answer any incoming calls, no one can, unless it's from Wulaoxing, but Wulaoxing won't call. Do you understand? The accompanying CP immediately nodded to show understanding, and then the secretary walked into the conference room. Gentlemen, it seems that there is a lot of opposition to this plan. I would like to remind everyone that from the moment the world government embarked on the conquest of the world, we have been riding on this speeding train without breaks or stops. The smooth start of the journey has made you forget that this road is actually very dangerous, very dangerous, very dangerous. Once we derail, we are no different from this group of voluntary cabanas. So we can only do our best to maintain this train and ensure it continues to run smoothly. If anyone has any objections, let's all say that this meeting is for this purpose. Our goal is to solve problems, not to raise objections one by one. Everyone has difficulties, but all of you here are elites. I hope to hear about solutions rather than so-called problems. Many opposing opinions at the meeting displeased Jiro. After all, since the 5 Elders Star instructed him, he understood that this plan must be pushed forward, but the numerous opposition reasons now prevent him from coming forward. On the one hand, it sets the tone for the meeting, and on the other hand, he has also seen many officials dissatisfied with the Minister of Justice's speech. As the conference host, I have to speak up. However, as soon as he finished speaking, someone once again raised objections. Your Excellency Chairman Jilo, I would like to ask everyone to open the 4th document, which is the definition plan for volunteers of the Cabane Resource Regeneration Plan. This plan is very detailed, just like the age limit mentioned by the Ministry of Labor is also mentioned in the plan, but this plan ignores a group of people. I don't know if it was the planner's negligence or intention, but I would like to ask everyone who is working on it to pay attention. According to the plan of the Academy of Sciences, it is difficult for Caban to be organically synthesized artificially, so the execution time of this plan is probably in units of hundreds of years. So I would like to ask, Your Excellency Chairman Jiro, a mixed-race person from a different world than Blue Star, or a second-generation mixed-race person born from a combination of mixed-race people and Blue Star people, as well as mixed-race people in various future situations. Although the number of these people is not significant at present, their numbers will inevitably expand in the future. Whether these people are comfortable or not should be decided. It should be noted that these mixed-race people are mostly children of soldiers and officials exploring foreign worlds. Will this affect our foreign strategy? I would like to ask everyone to understand that we value Cabane in order to better explore the outer world. If the rebirth of Cabane affects the strategic plan of the outer world, is it a cause and effect reversal? It should be noted that as the number of outer worlds gradually increases, the number of mixed-race people in the future cannot be underestimated. If the Cabane regeneration plan affects the government's extraterrestrial strategy, then I will directly present it to the Five Elders Star and request the temporary freezing of this plan. The speaker is Enlil, Vice Chairman of the World Government's Committee on Outsider Strategy. The Alien Strategy Committee is a global government that facilitates the coordination and guidance of various departments in the development, construction, resource recovery, support of agents, and administrative management of land directly occupied by the alien world in order to explore the alien world. Because it directly belongs to the Supreme Council, its chairman, like Jilo, is also the Chief of Staff of the Council. As the Vice Chairman, Enlil is also an official in this meeting who ranks second only to Jilo. Although his level is one level lower than Jilo's, the two belong to different departments, and his decision-making power for promotion is not within Jilo's control. Therefore, he is not afraid of offending Jilo. Therefore, as soon as Jiro finished speaking, he interrupted his words. After all, in his view, although the Cabane resources were good, there were always substitutes in so many different realms, and if it affected the strategic plan of the different realms, the strategy committee would not accept it. Jilo listened to his speech expressionlessly, his right arm already hanging down on the conference table, and his index finger began to tap the table intentionally or unintentionally, until he heard Enlil finish speaking before stopping the tapping. Without speaking, he just looked at Enlil calmly, and Enlil was also unwilling to be outdone. The two of them looked at each other, and for a moment, the atmosphere in the conference room became subtle. All the attendees were watching the two of them, and no one dared to participate in the struggle between the two big shots for a while. At this time, even if a needle fell to the ground in the conference room, one could hear it. A sudden joking speech shattered the delicate atmosphere of the conference room. Indeed, even fish can have children with our blue star. In the future, there will be more mixed races between people from other realms and blue star people that cannot be stopped. Otherwise, we will have to undergo reproductive isolation surgery for those who enter these realms. However, the Japanese version of EG is quite good. UU reading www.uukangshu.net is not inferior to the group of EG in the country of harmony. Everyone should take care of their pants, although this temptation is generally irresistible to men. The speaker is a senior inspector from the inspection office, who is about to retire. He is not as wary of these two big shots as other officials, and he himself is also the supervisor of this meeting, so naturally he cannot let the meeting go silent. Therefore, using slightly teasing remarks to break the atmosphere. Other officials, upon hearing this joke, unconsciously smiled, and the atmosphere of the entire meeting temporarily eased. Vice Chairman Enlil also averted his gaze from Jilo's side and jokingly said, "It seems that Your Excellency Ricky has a good sense of the art concubine of Sunrise Ben. How about I have his subordinates in Sunrise Ben send you some?" "That's not necessary, just me, an old bone, can't stand it. Let's give a few to the young elite officials here. Let them also experience the customs and traditions of the foreign world well, so that they can support your committee's work even more in the future." As the atmosphere broke, the entire conference room became lively and everyone began to talk. Jilo interjected at this moment, "When I passed by the hall just now, I was attracted by the aroma of the restaurant. If it weren't for the urgent meeting, I would have wanted to stop and taste the food. Please forgive me, this old man, after all, I am already in my 60s. I didn't even eat lunch because I was on my way. How about Newman telling them to serve some dim sum and good wine? I really want to smell the black whale caviar in the South China Sea and the noctilucent wine in the North Sea when I just passed by. It's not easy for you to taste these. Why don't we take a 40-minute break first? Let's all taste the delicious food, and then discuss this plan with a happy heart. The meeting is adjourned now." Sin Under the Sunshine, 3, is created by a fellow Chinese scholar named Master of Chinese Studies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the sound of Jilo's parting, the entire venue began to drink the fine wine and eat the delicious food on the table, and began to communicate with each other, forming small circles one by one. And Jilo just calmly looked around, then suddenly stood up and walked towards Director Farr of the Treaty Amendment Department of the Ministry of Justice. "Your Excellency, can you accompany me, this old man, for a while? I happen to have a few legal questions to consult with you." Although Farr was a bit surprised, he didn't have too many expressions. "Of course, I also have many questions that I would like to ask you. Could you please give me more advice, Chairman?" After speaking, the two of them walked to the large balcony outside the conference room. And other officials looked enviously at Farr. After all, if they could gain the respect of Chairman Jilo, it would simply pave the way for these middle-level officials to pursue their future careers. "You young people are really energetic. When I see you, it reminds me of my youth. Back then, like you, I was always full of enthusiasm for work and fought for my ideals. That period of time was truly admirable. In the blink of an eye, I'm already in my 60s. Time flies. Your Excellency, Chief of Staff, you're not old. You're the backbone of the world government now, and you're a role model for us to learn from." "I'm joking, Your Excellency. Wu Laoxing is the helmsman of the world government. Their gaze is farther than ours, and all we need to do is execute orders well. I remember you are from the South China Sea. The South China Sea is a good place, where the cherry blossoms are beautiful and people are also stubborn. Being stubborn is not necessarily a bad thing, but being too stubborn in the officialdom is not good. By the way, I remember you and Minister Raul were from the same college. He praised you in front of me and strongly recommended you to come. If it weren't for your age, maybe the position of Minister of Justice could have been held for another term. Originally, he wanted to be the Deputy Director of the General Supervision Office, but he refused and insisted on going back to his hometown to teach. His love and pursuit of law are really similar to yours." Jilo's hidden beating, Farr never fails to understand, as an institution within the vast system of world governments, also harbors various factions. Some of these factions have been divided into maritime factions such as the Beihai faction and the Nanhai faction, some have been born into factions such as the aristocratic faction and the commoner faction, and some have been professionally divided into legal and financial departments. As the earliest demand for talent to join the world government, the Beihai faction has taken the lead and is currently the strongest faction under the world government. And Jilo himself was born in Beihai, so he naturally became the spokesperson for the Beihai faction. And the South China Sea faction in which I belong is relatively weak, with only a few people left, except for Minister Raul of the Ministry of Justice, all of whom are deputy in virtuous positions. In fact, I am already considered a second top official in the South China Sea faction. Originally, there was Minister Raul on the rise, but now that Raul has stepped down, it is difficult to move forward. Therefore, although Farr was stubborn, as a high-ranking official, he naturally understood Jilo's words. So subconsciously ask. "Is that so? Your Excellency Raul can be considered my teacher. He once taught me law, and it was under his influence that I officially decided to pursue law. As I traveled further down this path, I also felt that it was a truth that I fought for. However, I didn't expect that since he was going to resign, I really didn't expect that his departure would be a major loss for the Ministry of Justice. However, the teacher's ideal is to cultivate more legal talents, not in the officialdom. As for recommending me, I guess you think I'm just as stubborn as him and only suitable for legal work. Or just like Chairman, you can see in me what I looked like when I was young. It's true that seeing you now reminds people of my youthful appearance, but in your heart, am I also a stubborn and terrible old man like Raul? Then I have to tell you, I'm not." Seemingly witty words are actually hitting Farr not to be as stubborn as Raul. Farr smiled at Jilo and nodded, "That's not it. Your Excellency, the Chairman, is different in my heart. You are my role model. As for why this is different, I don't know. Jilo just smiled and the conversation changed. Do you know that after Raul retires, the position of the former minister is taken over by the first deputy minister, BLO, and the next two deputy ministers take over. This leaves a deputy minister. Your Excellency Raul originally recommended you, but BLO did recommend other candidates. By the way, it seems to be called Harvey, but it's a bit smaller than you, isn't it? To be honest, the Grand Committee is a headache. After all, Minister Raul recommended you, but we cannot ignore Minister BLO's recommendation. To be honest, I am also a headache because you are all elites. Choosing anyone is a loss. To be honest, hearing this directly struck Far like lightning. After all, Far knew that the teacher was not willing to work as a fake high-ranking official in the inspection room and would also resign, just to fight for the position of deputy minister for himself. Based on my age and the arrangement of my teacher, I am confident that I will take over as the minister within 2 terms, and then I can continue to reform the Ministry of Justice according to my own and the teacher's ideas. Kajiliuo's words directly made him understand that his and his teacher's small plan had long been seen by those old foxes. The reason why they did not oppose it was partly because of convention, but on the other hand, they probably took this opportunity to grasp themselves. Sure enough, when he disagreed with the plan, he immediately launched this Harvey. Harvey was still younger than himself, and once he got stuck, all his plans with the teacher were interrupted. Thinking of this, Raul broke out in a cold sweat for a moment. Watching Raul start feeling a bit at a loss, Jilo smiled. Don't have too much burden, after all, the final outcome hasn't been decided yet. Do you know that in the officialdom, having a good friend is not enough, and fate is sometimes more important? My senior once said to me a sentence, and I will also give it to you. Only by occupying a high enough space can you appreciate different landscapes, only by being in a high position can you more easily achieve your aspirations, fulfill your ideals, and make what you think is unfair fair. Otherwise, everything is just wishful thinking. I know your insistence on the law, but I also hope you understand that the essence of the law is to serve rulers. Yu reads www.uukangshu.net instead of using it to regulate us. I appreciate your persistence in the law, and I have always believed that professional matters should be entrusted to professionals. Now, can I ask you to introduce a reasonable and legal law to make this matter appear legitimate? Of course, if you really find it difficult, I can also let others come, but who makes you the best? I and the above all like excellent young people. Raul began to struggle. On the one hand, it is my persistence in the law for so many years, and on the other hand, it is a testament to the ideals and aspirations of myself and my teacher. How should I choose? Kajiliuo's words made him understand that even if he didn't want to, the world government could find someone willing to do this. What is the significance of one's persistence in this case? Raul let out a sigh of relief. He pleaded, "You're right, Your Excellency Chairman. I will soon introduce a law that makes this policy appear to be in line with procedural justice. However, can we temporarily refrain from taking action until this law is enacted? Procedural justice still needs to be upheld. Of course, that's not a problem, but I hope you can complete this law as soon as possible. After all, there isn't much time left for us. I believe that the introduction of this law can make the people above recognize your abilities more, the faster the better." In the midst of their conversation, a deal was reached. In the eyes of future generations, this extremely heinous act of making weapons by trampling on the lives of billions of people has been blatantly traded in today's conversation. Treading on this behavior legally and compliantly in the name of the law. It was not until later with scientific breakthroughs that this law was abolished after the artificial synthesis of carbapenem. World Government. Continuously updating. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Official ranks Dean, Minister, Director, 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 Section Chief. The Supreme Ruler Void Throne. I am Emma Wang Xia's 7 Marshal C's Jalakol Mehak, Don Quixote de Domingo, Douglas Barrett, Gil Tazalo, INILU. The Supreme Executive Committee is responsible for managing senior military officers, including military generals, deans, and ministers. Supreme Executive Member. 5 Old Stars. Former member of the highest governing committee. Minister of Administration. The 5 major deans. The State Council, the Judicial Yuan, the Propaganda Council, the Supreme Command of the entire Army, and the Cipher Pole Headquarters. 5 Chief of Staff. Alexander Watson, Fernandez, and others. The Grand Committee is responsible for deciding on the promotion and review of intermediate officials, including ministers, directors, and deputy directors. Chairman. Jairo Peraz Committee. The Supervision Office is responsible for supervising the dereliction of duty and corruption of intermediate officials, including ministers, directors, and deputy directors. Inspector General. Moslan Johnston, Grand Council, Dean of the Deacon. Hawkins Baldwin, Commander of the Holy Land Garrison. Marshal. Jiang Shou, Treasurer of the Holy Land. Margot Levi, Director of the Holy Services Department. Brawl Nevis, Exotic Strategy Committee. Chairman. Fernandez, Vice Chairman. Lieutenant General Kong Ming, Bulwo Gabriel, Marlon Weiford, Hobson Samuel, Government Council, Dean of Administration. Clifford Clay, Minister of Administration. Mick Marvani, Minister of Finance. Stavin Chowdhury, Audit Director. Emily Sommer, Minister of Cabane World Branch. Lano, Director of the Ghost Destruction World Branch. Addison, Director of the Giant World Division. O'Connor, Trial Yuan, Trial President. Smedley, Supreme Court Justice. Marcus Morris, Minister of Justice. Hector Ratlick, Minister of Police. Munch D. Dorag, Director of the Promotion City. Columbus, Deputy Director of Promotion City. Magellan Xianjing Yuan, Dean of Xianjing. Josh Lund, Dean of the Academy of Sciences. Bega Punk, Dean of the Biochemical Research Institute. Fritz, Dean of the Medical School. Gu Lewa, Minister of Propaganda. Rarel Soro, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Molotov, Minister of Historical Research. Louis Wuda, the Supreme Command Headquarters of the entire Army, Commander-in-Chief. Gareth Malik, Commander-in-Chief. Kong, Chief of Staff. He, Minister of Military and Political Affairs. Zifa, Army Marshal. Raymond, Admiral of the Navy. Warring States Period Air Force Marshal. Zifa, General of the Army. Sakaski, Admiral Munch D. Kapu, Kazan Air Force Generals. Palyasalino, Quito Honorary Generals. Edward Newgate, Charlotte Lingling, Rear Admiral of the Army. Shaw Proctor, Rear Admiral's Supplement. A Smile, Air Force General's Rear Supplement. Cipher Pole, President of CP General Institute. Belts, CP.0 Captain. Bowen, CP.0 Shield. Beirut, Leadfield, CP.9 Captain. Loschi, CP Captain. Steve Gus, Island of Harmony, Master of the Imperial Saber Studio. Joracle, St. Mihak High Ren Village and Hai Ying. Fu Lu Shou, Tianlong Holy Academy School Dean. Jora Corps, St. Dean's Assistant. Luo, Southwest D. World Government 3 Military Salary System Standard Table. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The Supreme Command Headquarters of the entire Army, Headquarters. Empty, fixed salary, basic salary, monthly salary, plus living allowance plus position allowance and pension, in addition to additional bonuses for various medals. The main battle corps has a main battle subsidy, so the overall salary is higher than that of the defensive corps. Basic salary is determined by military rank, and each rank level is further divided into salary levels based on military seniority. Salary increases by 3% after 3 years of military service, followed by a 2% increase every 1 year, with a maximum of 20 years, which is 43% of salary. Salaries are divided by legion level, namely main combat, defense, and auxiliary. Bonuses will be distributed based on actual circumstances. Marshal. 12 million Pele, providing compensation of 120 million Pele General. 10 million Pele for regular duty, 8 million Pele for honor, Commander of the Army plus 3 million Pele, and 100 million Pele for compensation Major General. Main Battle 5 million Belly, Defending 2 million Belly, Division Commander plus 1 million Belly, Brigade Commander plus 700,000 Belly, providing compensation for 50 million Belly Major General. 3 million Pele for Main Battle, 1.5 million Pele for Defense, Captain plus 700,000 Pele, and 30 million Pele for compensation Brigadier General. Main Battle 2 million Pele, Guarding 1.2 million Pele, Battalion Commander plus 6 million Pele, providing compensation for 10 million Pele Colonel. Main Battle 1.8 million Baileys, Guarding 1 million Baileys, Company Commander plus 4 million Baileys, providing compensation for 8 million Baileys Colonel. Main Battle with 1.4 million Pele, Defense with 900,000 Pele, Platoon Leader plus 3 million Pele, compensation with 8 million Pele Major. Main Battle 1.2 million Baileys, Guarding 800,000 Baileys, Squad Leader plus 100,000 Baileys, providing compensation for 8 million Baileys Captain. Main Battle with 1 million Baileys, Guarding 700,000 Baileys, providing compensation for 7 million Baileys Lieutenant. Main Battle with 900,000 Baileys, Guarding 600,000 Baileys, providing compensation for 7 million Baileys Lieutenant. 850,000 Baileys for Main Battle, 550,000 Baileys for Defense, 7 million Baileys for compensation Lieutenant. 800,000 Baileys for Main Battle, 500,000 Baileys for Defense, 7 million Baileys for compensation Sergeant. Main Battle 700,000 Baileys, Defend 450,000 Baileys, provide compensation for 6 million Baileys Sergeant. Main Battle 650,000 Baileys, Defense 400,000 Baileys, compensation 6 million Baileys Corporal. Main Battle 600,000 Baileys, Guard 350,000 Baileys, provide compensation for 6 million Baileys First Class Soldier. Main Battle 550,000 Baileys, Guarding 300,000 Baileys, providing compensation for 5 million Baileys Private 2. Defend 150,000 Baileys and provide compensation for 3 million Baileys Third Class Soldier. Defend 100,000 Baileys and provide compensation for 2 million Baileys, Auxiliary Legion, basic salary plus participation bonus and pension, Colonel. 900,000 Bailey plus 500,000 Bailey, compensation of 5 million Bailey Colonel. 800,000 Baileys plus 400,000 Baileys, compensation of 4 million Baileys Major. 700,000 plus 300,000 Baileys, compensation of 3 million Baileys Captain. 600,000 Baileys plus 200,000 Baileys, compensation of 2 million Baileys Lieutenant. 500,000 Baileys plus 200,000 Baileys, compensation of 2 million Baileys Lieutenant. 450,000 Baileys plus 200,000 Baileys, compensation of 2 million Baileys Lieutenant. 400,000 Baileys plus 200,000 Baileys, providing compensation of 2 million Baileys Sergeant. 300,000 Baileys plus 150,000 Baileys, providing compensation for 1 million Baileys Sergeant. 250,000 Baileys plus 150,000 Baileys, compensation of 1 million Baileys Corporal. 200,000 Baileys plus 150,000 Baileys, compensation of 1 million Baileys Private 1. 150,000 Belly plus 100,000 Belly, compensation of 500,000 Belly Private 2. 100,000 Bailey, no pension Third Class Soldier. 50,000 Bailey, no pension. Chapter 1. The Pirate King captured with his hands bound. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the South China Sea, 5 warships with a volume much larger than the common ships in this area are sailing rapidly in the waves in a formation of 1, 2, and 2. Not far from them, an ordinary calm island sits on the sea surface. On the deck of the leading warship, 4 extremely tall men, approximately 3 meters tall, stood at the bow. Each of them exuded a unique aura, with the man standing at the forefront and wearing a ball-shaped explosive hairstyle being the most dominant. His spacious white coat swayed non-stop in the sea breeze. I really didn't expect that person to live in seclusion in such a small place, and he just became a world-renowned figure, didn't he? The one standing on the right side among the 3 looked excitedly at the small island and asked. I saw him wearing a purple seagull-patterned hood and small round glasses, with a head of black curly hair. He was also wearing a white righteous coat, but inside was a purple suit. And why do we have to wear formal attire? He showed a slight displeasure. Alright, Kazan, there's a high possibility of a big battle coming up. You should tidy up your mood as soon as possible, the explosive man said in a deep voice without looking back. Understood, General of the Warring States period. Kazan was both excited and nervous. Is Roger the Pirate King? It sounds tricky, but fortunately the 3 of us are not the main force. Policerino, standing shoulder to shoulder with the 2 people next to him, pursed his lips. Now he is wearing a black gentleman's hat with a white suit inside. At the same time, he was quite puzzled as to why he, who was still a brigadier general, was deliberately brought over in this operation. He really didn't want to get involved in such a troublesome matter. Sakaski, who was located in the middle of the 3, was dressed in a red suit. Although he remained silent, his cold gaze was fixed on the island called Bataraira. It's time for you to return to your respective warships. Remember, once a fight breaks out, your mission is to provide assistance and encircle, don't fight too hard. Warring States loosened his collar and instructed. Yes. Understood. Quickly, the 3 most promising newcomers from the Navy headquarters returned to their respective positions, and then 4 warships scattered on both sides, surrounding the small island in several directions, while the warship of the Warring States continued to advance straight. Standing alone at the bow of the ship in the Warring States period, I watched the approaching small island while pondering this somewhat strange task in my heart. How did the world government know that Roger was here? And that Roger was really terminally ill, which is why the pirates disbanded. They even said that Roger has a wife named Lu Jiao on this island, who is pregnant. These are the top secret intelligence sent to him by Marshal Kong by the world government a few days ago. Such incredible things have made him even more wary of Cipher Pole's ability. Surprisingly, even this kind of thing can be traced, which is truly chilling. Wow, have you finally arrived? That bastard Roger is hiding so deep. Cap yawned as he rubbed his eyes and strode out of the cabin door. Seeing his unremarkable appearance, the veins on his forehead in the Warring States period erupted, and he angrily said, "Look at what you look like. You're about to take action, and you look like you've just woken up." Cap waved his hand indifferently and said, "It's okay, it's okay. Isn't it that Roger has a terminal illness? Now he's alone, and the threat is much smaller than before. You're such a jerk." Warring States glared at him angrily, then turned to look at the small island and ignored him. Kapu walked up to him and touched his chin, saying in confusion, "It's just this mission, specifically requiring us to pay attention to the safety of civilians, try to evacuate the residents on the island first, and try not to damage the buildings and environment on the island too much." To be honest, I still can't believe my ears. Did these 5 old stars eat something overnight? Pay attention to your words, Kapu. Warring States snorted coldly, but he was also extremely surprised in his heart, feeling that the world government had become somewhat strange. But no matter what, this command is very in line with their wishes, so just accept it gladly. On the island of Bataraira, residents who were active near the port began to panic when they saw 5 huge warships surrounding them. They didn't know why the Navy came to this remote place in the South China Sea. Roger, who was having lunch with Lu Jiu, who had just become pregnant, frowned and his expression gradually became more serious. "What's wrong, Roger?" Lu Jiu put down her knife and looked over strangely. "I'll go out and you'll eat first." Roger stood up and touched the other person's long golden hair, with a smile on his face as he walked out of the restaurant. However, as soon as he opened the door, his gaze became sharp, completely devoid of the gentleness of an ordinary islander. Slowly closing the tightly fitted door, he scanned the deserted streets around him and finally let out a sigh. "Hey, have you still been found?" Following that, Roger slowly headed in a direction. Soon, after a corner, he saw familiar figures and a group of naval soldiers aiming towards him with guns. The atmosphere froze in an instant. "Yo, Roger, long time no see," Cap greeted with a grin, as if meeting an old friend, completely lacking the normal attitude of a navy towards pirates. "Can you tell me how you found this place, Kapu, Warring States?" Roger ignored the densely packed muzzle and spoke in a very calm tone. "You underestimate the intelligence capabilities of world governments too much, Roger," the Warring States period said in a low voice, while sighing in their hearts, "Isn't our navy? Cipher Pole. It's really a terrible organization." Roger pondered, wondering if he had been found by CP's people in some negligence, but no matter what he thought, it was not quite right. The existence of this small island, including the companions on the ship, had not been mentioned to anyone. "Roger, our purpose here should not need to be explained, so what is your choice?" asked the naval general of the Warring States period. When he mentioned this, Cap's body also became tense. After all, the man standing in front of him could be said to be his lifelong opponent. "Can you spare Lu Jiu?" Roger asked. To be honest, he didn't have much expectation for it, but just in case, he asked a question. However, the answer from the Warring States period surprised him. "Sure, according to the orders of the 5 elders, as long as you do not act in rebellion, your wife Lu Jiu and the soon-to-be-born child will live in Marinfando, but you cannot leave the island without authorization." The Warring States period uttered words that even he found unbelievable. "You even know that Lu Jiu is pregnant?" Roger looked at the Warring States period in shock. "You should know that the time of pregnancy was only a month ago. Even if there were CP people lurking on this island, it was impossible for them to know such things in the first place, right?" Faced with this issue, the Warring States could only remain silent because he also did not know the inside story. But no matter what, this answer still slightly calmed Roger's mind, but he still looked at Cap and asked, "Is this true, Cap?" The latter thought for a moment and nodded, "That's the same command I heard." "Is that right, then Lu Jiu and the child, please come on from now on, Cap." Roger cracked his mouth and smiled happily. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly extended his hands and allowed an extremely serious naval colonel to come over and handcuff them. The famous pirate king, who has just become 1 year old, has been officially arrested by the Navy. Chapter 2. Personally leading the world government. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Loneliness makes the night even more profound. Loneliness sublimates in the darkness, and the ancient full moon releases a cold light in solitude. Even with the twinkling stars around it, it still cannot bring any warmth. It silently gazes at the ancient castle below. Suppressing the 4 seas, ruling the world, the center of the highest power on the planet, recognized as the supreme holy land, all these terms refer to this city standing at the top of the red earth continent. Maria. Even at night, it shines like the most brilliant golden crown. And this castle, named Panjal, is the core of the Holy Land, inhabited by the legendary 5 old stars, controlling the situation and direction of the entire world, but there is a more central presence within the core. Void Throne. For the world, this golden throne, which symbolizes peace and equality, will always be placed as a symbol on a triple high platform, and no one will sit on it. Moonlight scattered from above, becoming the only light source in this void hall, making the entire interior space appear empty, cold, and the towering pointed throne bathed in most of its radiance. Just in this quiet moment of the night, a deep figure sat on the throne in the moonlight, with its back facing the emblem of the world government on the back of its chair. Its golden corrugated eyes looked down at the 5 people kneeling on their knees below. 5 old stars. Lord M. Gordy, Roger has been successfully arrested by the Navy and is currently being escorted by Captain Cap to Inverton during the Warring States period. His wife, Portcas D. Lugio, is also under house arrest in Marinfando as per your instructions, and is guarded by a female unit led by Rear Admiral Crane. The bald man holding a long sword was the first to speak, and then knelt on the right side in the center of the 5, dressed in a white robe and a green suit, followed closely by the bald man with 2 raised mustaches. After discussion, the 5 of us are considering a public execution in Roger's hometown, the town of Logue in the East China Sea, to deter countries around the world and suppress the increasingly rampant pirates' arrogance. What do you think? No way. The answer from the tall one really surprised the 5 people kneeling on the icy ground, causing them to be stunned for a moment. They didn't expect the adults to refuse the proposal. No matter how one looks at it, there are many benefits to public sentencing, and generally speaking, adults would not interfere too much with such a small matter in the past. What they didn't know was that the adult sitting above his head, although he still had a cold and aloof expression on the surface, was extremely conflicted in his heart. As a traveler, he certainly knew that according to common sense, public punishment had a positive effect on world governments, but also because he was a traveler, he knew more about the subsequent development of doing so. It's uncertain that Roger is waiting for public execution. He didn't believe the declaration that opened up the era of great navigation, it was really because someone asked by chance that he came up with it. Anyway, he felt that even if no one asked, Roger would definitely shout something similar out loud, otherwise wouldn't he just surrender and die for nothing? The public execution location is in Marinfando to avoid any further accidents, and during the live broadcast, only the voice of the Warring States period is played, and the entire process is kept silent to prevent Roger from saying something inappropriate before his death. Iamam, sitting on the throne of the void, came up with a compromise solution. Unexpected things that should not be said. The 5 old stars carefully pondered these 2 key words, and soon knelt on the far left. The person mainly responsible for history and technology seemed to be the first to understand. He habitually stroked his straight white beard, completely covering his mouth. Lord Imm is wise. The 4 people on the right glanced over in confusion. What do you understand? The reason why Roger became the world's recognized one-piece king is because he gathered 4 road signs and arrived at the Raftru, which means he must have some understanding of past history, so he must be wary of any words he may say during his public execution. I see. The other 4 suddenly realized and nodded in agreement. After hesitating for a second, Imm acquiesced. Although there were some differences from what he wanted to guard against, what the other party said did make sense. Roger's matter is handled in this way. Next, let's talk about the future, which is also the main reason why I ordered you to come this time. Just what he said next completely shocked the 5 old stars who were still kneeling down. I see the future. 24 years from now, there will be an unprecedented rebellion across the 4 seas, a massive war that can directly threaten the rule and lives of all Tianlong people. Despite uttering such terrifying words, Imm's tone remained as indifferent as ever, as if there was nothing in this world that could change his color. The cold moonlight on my body is so lonely. But the 5 people below had a big change in their faces, with their eyes wide open and their faces full of disbelief as they looked up, speechless for a long time. What are you saying? Is it impossible to say so? This kind of brainless words can either be difficult to say, or it would be a great rebellion. They have been the highest power holders on the surface for decades, and they wouldn't even lack this level of sophistication and intelligence. Secondly, they do not have any doubts in their hearts. The ability to predict the future, although it may sound fantastical, is a real existence in this world, at most rare and rare. And it can be said that their great master, Lord IMM, has this ability, which is absolutely reasonable. So the 5 old stars were only shocked by the predicted future situation. The 4 Seas Rebellion. A huge war. On my end, there was no intention of taking care of their emotions, and Yu continued to calmly narrate through the book www.yuyukeangshu.net. The source of this rebellion and war lies in the slaves and the Tianlong people. Given this situation, I will personally control the direction of the world, and you 5 will cooperate well, everything for the rule of the world's nobility. After listening, the emotions of the 5 old stars slowly calmed down and they also understood the meaning of Lord IMM. Prior to this, unless there were lights outside that needed to be erased from history, Lord IMM basically lived in seclusion between the months and enjoyed the tranquility of time. Now, this person is going to personally direct the direction of the world government ship. As for the 5 of them, although they still hold the rudder on the surface, it is not up to them to decide how to turn next. Even so, the 5 old stars have no resistance. As the saying goes, those who don't know are fearless, while they belong to the opposite situation. They know too much and dare not have any inappropriate thoughts. Sincerely comply with your imperial wishes. The voices of the 5 elderly people echoed in unison in the spacious and gloomy hall, while their kneeling heads drooped even lower. So, let's start with this year's World Conference. IMM's gaze, which had been looking down on everything, flickered with a determined star. Since he has now become the head of the world government, we will never allow that great change to occur in 20.4 years. Revolutionary Army, pirates, Albath, let's solve it one by one. IMM looked up at the starry galaxy above the sky, accompanied by the huge bright moon. First, completely control this world, and then use this planet as a ship to explore the vast sea of stars. Chapter 3. Star Map and Stargate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Call out. Returning to his own exclusive top-level space, IMM instinctively exhaled and expressionlessly faced the endless starlight and moonlight, heading towards the strange big tree not far away. Here, there is a name called Between the Moon, and the overall environment is completely consistent with the surface of the moon. At first glance, there are silver-gray ground and large and small pits, while the Milky Way and the bright moon above are actually real. However, during the day, the starry sky of that night will be simulated, so this place will always be at night. In this way, the lush green tree appears extremely abrupt. However, as IMM walked into the tree, he found a door and 2 windows on the trunk. When he opened the wooden door and walked in, he found that it was actually a complete suite, bedroom, dining room, living room, wet and dry bathroom, bathtub, as well as various furniture, telephone worms, and everything. Originally, this was a spacious treehouse, and even a staircase leading up to the upper level. To be honest, he is satisfied with these things. After all, he couldn't afford such a good house before traveling. As he returned to his own cabin with no one else present, IMM sat on the soft sofa, his cold and aloof face relaxed a lot. He leaned against the sofa and looked up at the ceiling of the cabin, staring blankly. It has been almost a year since I traveled to this world and replaced this body and identity. From the initial shock, excitement, to calmness, it actually took less than 3 days. After all, no matter how intense a person's emotions are, they cannot last long. After calming down, he didn't immediately start taking action. Instead, he first understood the time point, and then quietly stayed between this month like the original IM, with the aim of familiarizing and mastering his own abilities, as well as memories. Firstly, in terms of ability, before traveling, I was just an ordinary person, and it was impossible for me to adapt to the power of this body. So he secretly practiced for a period of time, and in the eyes of the maids responsible for taking care of their daily lives, he just became more active lately, often dancing swords outside under the moon. Memory is equally important. IMM has lived for over 800 years now, and even if his brain automatically filters out useless and trivial memories, his total amount of information far exceeds that of ordinary people. And being familiar with memory is actually a process of understanding oneself. He needs to understand the personality and habits of the original owner, otherwise he may reveal his true identity when facing those 5 old stars. He will gradually change in the future. For these 2 reasons, even if Roger becomes the Pirate King outside, he has not taken a step between the months, because he is very clear that at this stage, nothing is more important than fully mastering his own strength. It wasn't until a few days ago that I successfully passed the level and revealed Roger's hiding place to the 5 old stars, asking them to order the Navy to go and arrest him. Although Roger may voluntarily surrender after a while, surrendering and being arrested are actually 2 different things. Although even if he surrenders, the world government can publicly announce it as an arrest, but it feels better to arrest him as soon as possible. At the same time, it is also with the intention of brushing off the achievements of the Warring States period, Sikorsky, Palyasolino, and Kazan. As for Cap, it is only for the sake of a layer of insurance. Even if Roger is terminally ill, he is still the Pirate King Roger. Who knows if he would choose to resist without voluntarily surrendering. If Roger really takes action, it's very likely that he won't be able to hold on alone during the Warring States period, and even implicate the 3 of them. They 3, their strength has not yet reached its peak. If they really scrap 1 or 2, they will cry to death. Now it's okay, everything is going smoothly anyway, it's definitely right to stop the emergence of the age of the pirates first, IMM thought silently in his heart. Star chart. Then he exhaled once again the golden finger that accompanied him across this world. Well, golden finger, as a traveler these days, I have traveled to such a high-risk world as the One Piece King. How can I get by without golden finger? Although he actually feels that his current identity, status, strength, wealth, and lifespan are quite questionable. Compared to those who traveled through time to become slaves, pirates, and commoners, this can be considered as the beginning of the Tianhu era and the beginning of the European emperor. Even if based on the development of the original plot, it is likely to be overthrown and killed in 24 years. As IMM called out in his heart, a magnificent virtual image of a spiral galaxy disk appeared out of nowhere, with each star shining brightly. At the same time, the prompt in the bottom left corner remained quietly waiting for his response. Can open a random small star gate for this golden finger. I have basically understood it all these days, and I have read the manual it comes with over and over again. After all, it is very likely to be the reliance for my future survival, but he was wrong. Very wrong. It's not that these golden fingers are useless, but for the time being, they are useless for his current situation. According to the explanation, it is not a system, but a type of star map that records all galaxies, stars, planets, and satellites in the universe, and also automatically updates in real time. It looks particularly impressive. At the same time, it also comes with a feature called Stargate. Every year, it randomly opens a small star gate leading to another planet, which is said to be 3 meters high, 2 meters wide, small or large. According to the instructions, the planet connected by this star gate, UU reading www.uukangshu.net, although cannot guarantee whether it is a civilized planet, must be a solid and stable planet, so there is no need to worry about stepping over it and encountering an inexplicable aura on the opposite side. And once you choose to open this star gate, the accurate position of the planet in this universe will be highlighted on the star map, which means that as long as she has the ability, she can fly a spaceship over there. Although this may seem a bit foolish, even if there is a star gate that can pass in an instant, but what if it's the opposite? That is to say, if one day he arrives at a certain planet with a spaceship, the planet will also be highlighted on the star map, and the Stargate permission will be automatically activated, allowing him to instantly return to the Neptune, pirate planet, or go to other planets that have already opened their stargates. So, isn't this a lot more useful now? But then again, this star chart and star gate are of little use to the situation I am currently facing. As the saying goes, if you want to resist the outside, you must first settle in. He didn't even have complete control over this starfish, pirate planet, cleaned it up, and even faced a huge crisis 24 years later. What else did he think about that completely unknown sea of stars? At the end of the day, it's difficult for this star chart and stargate to be of any help to him. Of course, it's also possible that I haven't figured it out yet. Perhaps if the future is really pushed to a dead end, it's not necessarily that the star map and stargate will become the future. Upon thinking of this, Im's heart became even more stable. With his terrifying combat power and various abilities, as long as the planet's environment was not too harsh, there would be no major problem living a life. Since there is already a way out, let's clean up this world well next. Chapter 4. The Arrangement of Lu Jiu's Mother and Son. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Marin Fando, who was hidden in her black robe, lowered her head expressionlessly as she walked step by step between the layers of stone buildings. The flat cement floor beneath her feet was so hard and cold. Surrounded by her were a dozen female naval officers, each dressed in a white and generous coat of justice. A few of them were as tall as 2 to 3 meters, and each person exuded a strong aura that made the sailors on both sides stand tall and salute. Just now, as soon as she stepped off the warship, she was handed over to the female lieutenant in front of her by the naval admiral Warring States. And Roger was imprisoned on another warship, and after the magnificent and huge gate of justice opened, he was led by naval hero Cap to sail in another direction. Lu Jiu knew that they had gone to the terrifying underwater prison rumored to be advancing to the city of Impelton. At that time, her gaze lingered for a long time. Lu Jiu raised her eyes slightly and looked at the female general known as the Crane. She appeared to be in her 40s or 50s. Although there were some obvious wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, her deep blue hair was devoid of any white strands, and her 2-meter-tall figure looked slightly normal. The key is that the other person does not have a strong aura, giving a very gentle feeling. In addition, I have heard about Roger before, who seems to be a righteous navy named He, which has helped Lu Jiu's emotions relax a bit. But she cares more about these navies in her heart. No, it should be said that how the world government will treat the children in her belly. After all, this is the bloodline of the pirate king. As for her own life, to be honest, she doesn't really care. Under the gaze of many male sailors, a group of female generals finally arrived at a barracks gate to the west. They saw that the gate was guarded by female soldiers on both sides. Looking inside, they could clearly see many small buildings and spacious playgrounds. Lu Jiu followed He into the camp and found that there were all female soldiers and generals here. At this moment, she seemed to understand that she had been taken to the exclusive area for female soldiers. You go back and rest, just leave it to me. General, he stopped and said to the female generals escorting around. Yes, Lieutenant General. The female generals responded without hesitation and then dispersed in 2s and 3s. Immediately, Crane's gaze turned to Lu Jiu and he smiled. Let's go, I'll take you to see the room. Lu Jiu chooses to remain silent. He didn't care either, turned around and continued walking, while Lu Jiu followed silently. Not long after, the two of them arrived at a very simple courtyard, and the latter was taken to a small room. This is my home. From now on, you will live with me. Generally, no one will come in without permission, and there are female doctors in the camp at any time. You can live with peace of mind. Upon hearing General He's words, Lu Jiu looked at the environment inside the room. The golden sunlight shone through the glass windows, and although there wasn't much furniture, there were beds, tables, and cabinets, including a separate wet and dry bathroom. It looked very clean, and the air was filled with a faint fragrance of flowers. However, there are some things you should also pay attention to, which is not to leave this small courtyard without authorization. After a while, you can wander around the camp with someone to accompany you, but this is already the limit, and you must not leave the female soldiers' camp. Lu Jiu nodded and lifted the black hood from her head, whispering, What are the world governments planning to do with my child? He noticed the concern and unease in Lu Jiu's eyes and showed a kind smile. Marshal Kong's order is to place you under house arrest in a women's camp, and your child will also live here before the age of 6. However, after the age of 6, he will be required to study at a naval elementary school like other children on the island. He can go home every 7 days and take 2 long vacations each year, each lasting 30 days. When he is 12 years old, he will be promoted to the Naval Academy. 4 years later, he will be given different military ranks based on his grades and officially become a qualified Navy officer. General, he used a paragraph to describe the future situation of the child in Lu Jiu's belly after birth, while also telling the other party to relax and let nothing happen. Your child will grow up healthy and healthy. Becoming a Navy. Lu Jiu looked at Lieutenant General Crane incredulously. Roger's child can also become a Navy. This is the message I received, but you're a bit mistaken. Crane shook her head and sighed with a smile. When she heard from Marshal Kong about the arrangements made by the world government for Lu Jiu's mother and son, her surprise was indescribable. Moreover, when she heard the voice and tone on the other side of the phone worm, it was obvious that Marshal Kong himself was also shocked. What? Lu Jiu suddenly became nervous, and only heard the Crane continue to say, your child in your belly is not allowed to use Roger in your surname, nor are you allowed to tell him about Roger being a father. You must remember this. According to the orders issued by the world government, once your child is found to have known her background before lifting the ban and shows hostility towards the world government and navy, she will be arrested or even executed. Lu Jiu fell silent for a moment after listening, and he was not in a hurry. He just watched her quietly, waiting for her answer. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. I understand now. From now on this child will be a person without a surname, Lu Jiu said softly as she stroked her still flat belly. She knew that this was already the best outcome, and that the world government could treat her so well was far beyond imagination. Well, as long as you've figured it out. By the way, I also have a sister named Ziyuan who occasionally comes to see me. I'll introduce you to her then. Good. A few days later, the latest issue of the World Economic Report was released in a frenzy, being airlifted by hundreds of thousands of news birds to various sea areas, kingdoms, islands, and even ships. When people from all over the world saw the headline on the front page of the newspaper, they were stunned for a moment, followed by bursts of screams. Pirate King D. Roger is arrested by the Navy. In the article, a brief introduction is given to the Naval General Warring States and Naval Hero Cap, who led 3 naval generals, Sakaski, Porcelino, and Kazan, along with 5 warships, to successfully capture Roger on the island of Badalira in the South China Sea. He will be publicly executed at exactly 11 noon on January 1 next year at the Justice Square in Marinfando, the headquarters of the Navy. Even mentioning that Roger's birthday is on December 31st, praising the world government for allowing Roger to celebrate his birthday with great kindness. Suddenly, the entire great voyage was blown up by this thin newspaper, causing a commotion, especially in the waters of the New World where the great pirates were gathering. On the Mobidic, Edward Newgate, a blonde with a white beard, held a huge wine bottle in his hand and remained silent as he looked in the direction of Marinfando. Under his feet was the newspaper that had already been read, and the crew around him looked at each other. For a moment, only the sound of surging waves kept rising and falling on the deck. Chapter 5. The Fury of the Golden Lion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A certain sea area in the New World. With a loud bang, a small island floating in the sky shook, followed by large cracks. Countless stones fell with a loud bang, throwing out one huge water column after another on the sea surface. Impossible. The furious roar, like that of a lion king, accompanied by dark red waves, swept open, and even the white clouds above the floating island were instantly torn apart. Boss! Boss! In the banquet hall on the island, Hundreds of new pirates who had been with the flying pirates for less than 3 years watched in horror as the abyss of the scene, almost splitting the entire hall in half, began to scatter towards both sides. On stage, the Golden Lion, Shirji tightly held the famous sword, Sakura 10, in his hand, already plunged into extreme anger. His raging anger kept him panting heavily, and his eyes were crimson like blood, especially the head that was pierced by the rudder felt a faint pain. Just now, he chopped the newspaper on the coffee table into powder with one blow. Roger. Roger is a man recognized by the old man. How could it be? How could it be caught by that bunch of junk from the Navy? How could it be? Shirji once again roared with anger, while at the same time, a powerful and domineering aura erupted from within him. Suddenly, large figures rolled over their eyes and fainted on the ground. In the blink of an eye, only a few people stood in place, swaying their steps. The former paid no attention to the situation of his subordinates and rushed out of the hall with his double swords in his hand, transforming into a golden shadow. Even though several officials behind him shouted loudly, he completely ignored them and flew away from the floating island at an extremely fast speed. About 5 minutes later, Shirji's figure disappeared without a trace. Just as the officials were at a loss, the ground beneath their feet shook violently, causing their faces to turn pale in fear. Quickly, the entire floating island fell like a huge meteorite, causing terrifying waves to sink into the seabed with a loud bang. From this moment on, the flying pirate group that has roamed the sea for nearly 15 years will disappear. Naval Headquarters, Marinfando. What? The Golden Lion will come and attack here. In the Marshal's office, General Waring States, who had just sat down for a while, stood up from the sofa after listening to Marshal Kong's words. Even Cap, who was sitting opposite him eating shinbei, stopped moving. Well, this is the news just announced by the 5 old stars, so we need to prepare as soon as possible. Marshal Kong, with a white head on the mountain, looked extremely serious. If that's the case, then Shirji should have come here after reading today's newspaper, calculated the distance and speed of the floating island, and probably arrived here tomorrow morning. The Warring States General expressed his thoughts in his heart. Marshal Kekong shook his head and said, "No, what 5 old stars said was that he will fight alone." Alone? Cap frowned. How dare he? The Warring States period was also full of surprise and confusion, and then pursued, how did the 5 old stars know about this? I'm not sure, it wasn't mentioned over there, but you can guess it with a little thought, sighed Marshal Kong. There are people from the cipher pole within the flying pirates. Warring States immediately remembered, it should have been this spy who saw Shirji leave alone before sending the intelligence, that's why it's so accurate. Marshal Kong nodded. For a moment, the two of them stopped talking, and the atmosphere in the office became quiet. It was because Cipher Pole's espionage ability was too terrifying, which made them even more fearful and vigilant. At this moment, Cap spoke with a serious expression on his face. So what are we going to do next? No matter how nervous he is, he knows the seriousness of the attack on the Golden Lion. If he came alone, the speed would definitely be faster. Tonight, no, he can arrive before tonight. Warring States said in a low voice. We'll just wait and grab it when we come. Cap clenched his right fist. No. The Warring States period shook its head and looked at Marshal Kong, saying, we cannot place the battlefield in Marinfando, otherwise it will definitely cause huge damage and casualties, but we cannot be too far from here, after all, Shirji's goal is here. Marshal Kong nodded in agreement as he pondered, and asked, do you have any thoughts? Let's talk about it. As he slowly sat back on the sofa during the Warring States period, his eyebrows furrowed and he began to ponder. There were only 3 islands around Marinfando, Justice Island, Advancing City, and the Shampoo Islands. Obviously, none of these places could be used as battlefields. But if there were no small islands, wouldn't he and Cap still have to face each other at sea? That would require aerial combat, which is too advantageous for the Golden Lion, Shiki, who possesses the ability to float fruits. Do you want to free up a few warships and gather them together to put them off the coast of Marinfando? Marshal Kong came up with a solution. Okay, but a few may not be enough, even if it's me and Cap boarding together, it's not an easy task to take ski. At least 10 ships are needed. Time passed by little, and the golden sun slowly set in the blue sky, as if it had not been long before it had turned into a sunset, casting a golden light on the sea level. However, the sky had a clear night color. Suddenly, on the horizon in the direction of the New World sea area, 5 naval vessels floating in the sky appeared, and the decks of each were covered with corpses of sailors, including several generals wearing righteous coats. The extremely strong smell of blood filled the surroundings of the 5 warships, and from time to time, blood that had already cooled down dripped down the hull. They were like magic ships from the abyss flying quickly over the sea. The Golden Lion, Ski Pan, sat on the observation deck of one of the warships, staring intently at the island where a faint shadow could already be seen. Naval Headquarters, Marinfando, here we are. He slowly stood up, gripping the palms of the 2 knives and gradually exerting force. However, as the distance rapidly drew closer, his pupils suddenly shrank. Although he had not seen anything with the naked eye, he had already sensed 2 extremely strong and familiar auras upon seeing and smelling the dominant aura, which filled Shurji's heart with doubt and surprise. About 20 minutes later, the 2 sides drew closer enough to gaze at each other, and Shurji clearly saw 2 strong men dressed in white coats of justice and black suits inside, as if standing on a calm sea surface. Warring States period. Kapu. 5 floating warships slowly slowed down, and Yu stopped floating. The Golden Lion, Shurji gritted his teeth and said the names of the 2, revealing no signs of malice or killing intent in his eyes. His anger rose again. At the same time, he had already seen something under their feet, which was ice, a vast ice sheet that froze the entire sea near Marinfando. It is obvious that the navy was well prepared. You finally arrived. I'll be waiting for you here for 2 hours, and I'll have to punch you hard later. Cap moved his thick neck and strong arms, grinning and gritting his teeth, looking up at Ski with a fierce smile on his face. Shurji, you've made up your mind. If you move your hand today, you won't want to leave today, said the Warring States with a calm face as you stepped on the cold ice. After hearing this, Shurji was furious. Since he dared to attack, he had already prepared his consciousness and needed an explanation. Tell me. How did the Navy catch Roger just by relying on you trash? Bring him here to me, even if you want to kill him, I can only personally kill him. He is the man I identify with. How could it be that Warring States and Cap did not respond after listening? I just feel that Shurji is completely living in a dream. The 2 of them exchanged a glance and, in tacit agreement, pulled off their coat of justice and threw it aside, walking slowly towards Shurji. At the same time, the 5 huge bloody warships, accompanied by the roaring of the Golden Lion, were smashed down like wildfire. Give Roger back to me. Behind, at the edge of the square in Marinfando, Kazan, dressed in black and purple, collapsed on the ground, panting and looking wearily at the thunderous battle unfolding in the distance. Chapter 6. Turns out I'm so strong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Holy Land, Maria, Ponjil Castle, Between the Moon. IMM leaned against the comfortable sofa, carefully watching the high-definition images released by the phone worm, which were the scenes of the fierce battle between the Warring States period, Kappa, and Ski outside of Marinfando. The ubiquitous air waves bombard each other, waves and splashes rise and fall one after another, constantly shattering ice and the wreckage of warships. Coupled with the incredible speed and skills of the 3, accompanied by dazzling golden lights, it gives people a feeling of appreciating top-level blockbusters. If we had seen the movements of these people before crossing, but now it's different. He has fully adapted to his own strength, and dynamic vision can easily capture the details of the battle. Ayamam picked up the red wine glass from the coffee table, shook the fresh red wine inside, and chuckled lightly. In this way, Marinfando can avoid being destroyed for the most part, it's just that Kid Kazan worked hard. The incident of the Golden Lion attacking the Navy headquarters was naturally revealed to the 5 old stars in advance, who then conveyed it to Marshal Kong. As for the idea of having Kazan create a large ice sheet outside the port, it is said to have been conceived by the Warring States period. The current Kazan, although stronger than the average general, has not yet reached the level of a general and cannot freeze the sea area in an ice age. So from noon to evening, he was always busy. After all, it was a battlefield to prepare for the 3 big shots, so the thickness and area of the ice needed a lot of effort. For Ayamam, watching the fierce battle of the 3 world's top fighters helps him to have a deeper understanding of the gap between these people and himself. Memory is just memory, after all, it is a traveler, and some things are better seen with one's own eyes. It has to be said that the battles of these 3 people have made his sense of security rise every minute and second. Coupled with the possession of that national treasure, he only has one thought in his heart. Turns out, I'm so strong. So it seems that I have quite a few tricks and resources on my end, and now it's up to me how to operate. IME took a sip of the red wine, enjoying the sweet and smooth taste on his taste buds, his eyes thoughtful. There are still 20.4 years left until the final battle of the original work, but now that I am here, many things cannot remain unchanged. Since that's the case, after executing Roger, let's start next year. Now it is the end of December 1497, and next year in 1498, a new World Conference will be held. 3 days later, the World Economic Journal added a new issue, and its content once again caused a sensation throughout the world. The headline on the front page is bolded in bold and reads, "Shocked. The Golden Lion. Ski arrested and imprisoned." This time, the above content provides a detailed introduction. Due to Roger's arrest, Ski attempted to attack the naval headquarters alone, but was defeated by the well-prepared Naval General Warring States and naval hero Cap. At this time, he had already been imprisoned in the world's largest prison, the city of Impelton. In addition, there are extremely clear photos printed on it, which are the scenes of Shurji lying in front of the Warring States period and Kapu, covered in bruises, which can be regarded as a record of the highlights of the Navy. A few days ago, the pirate King Roger was just caught and was about to be publicly executed. Now, even the commander of the Golden Lion pirate fleet, which has been dominating the New World for over a decade, has been taken down by the Navy. Various kingdoms and forces have been heavily intimidated by the powerful capabilities demonstrated by the Navy. At the same time, the authority of the world government has further penetrated into people's hearts, and the pirates who have caused chaos in the 4 seas have subconsciously converged. Advancing city, in the infinite hell of the underground 6 floors, Magellan, who was nearly 5 meters tall, stood on the dark corridor, observing the new tenants in the iron prison. Around him stood several specially arrived wardens, all of whom came for the people inside. Is this the Golden Lion, Shurji? Apart from his hair being a bit lush, it doesn't seem like a big deal. He even specifically asked us to put an extra pair of handcuffs on him. Shilio smiled mischievously while holding his cigar, thinking to himself, find a chance to stab these adults and see how they feel. As the deputy director, Magellan looked at Ski lying flat on the cold floor with his feet and hands clasped inside the prison and opened his mouth. The director said that in order to prevent him from cutting off his own feet, the person above used the ability of the floating fruit to break out. In the future, all prisoners of the 6th level of ability will have to wear handcuffs. What, cut off your own feet? The wardens who stayed inside were all stunned for a moment, and then immediately thought to themselves, if such a thing really happened, could they stop the man inside? According to the information, this Shurji is not only an awakener of the floating fruit, but also a double-blade flowing swordsman at the level of a great swordsman. Coupled with his top-notch dominance, the thought of this makes everyone shudder. Alright, let's leave after reading, Magellan ordered in a low voice. Yes. Good. The wardens quickly responded and returned to their respective floors. Among them, Shilio took a deep look at Magellan's back and left together, while Magellan himself remained standing in place. After about 20 minutes, the director personally led a few people to come. Magellan opened the prison door, and these are personnel sent by the world government who need to contact Shirji. Magellan looked around and saw that there were 5 people coming, 3 of whom were dressed in standard black suits and leather boots, all exuding a shrewd aura, while the other 2 were carrying small white boxes, seemingly not combatants. Good. The director gave the order, and of course he had to listen. The key to this infinite hell cell was on him. Of course, there are also cases with the director, but can the boss personally handle such matters? Quickly, Magellan opened the prison door and 2 people carrying boxes and a black suit walked in. The remaining 2 black suit personnel stood guard at the door, appearing as if no one was allowed to enter. Is this? Magellan looked at the director in confusion, but the latter shook his head. Don't ask too much, Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net has nothing to do with us. I heard they will come frequently in the future. You just need to take them over and open and lock the door. Magellan nodded silently. The people inside moved quickly and walked out in less than 5 minutes, then quickly followed the director without saying a word. Magellan glanced at them and then approached the prison door to look inside, only to find that Ski, who was still unconscious inside, had not changed at all. During the month, Im received a phone call from Wulaoxing. Lord Iam, Ski's blood has successfully reached Punk Hassad. Well, let Dr. Bergapunk try to replicate the floating fruit. This ability is of great use to our world governments, with a higher priority than research on Kito's genes and abilities. Also, be optimistic about Shiki, don't let him die, don't let him cause disability, he's still useful. Sincerely comply with your imperial wishes. Pa Ji, putting the microphone back on top of the phone worm's head, Im gazed out the window at the lunar environment and the faint Milky Way. He is thinking about the person Vegapunk. According to the content of the original work, he perfectly replicated the green dragon fruit of Kaido, but claimed to the world government that it was a failure. Is it because the latter really thought it was a failure, or did they lie knowing they succeeded? It seems that this doctor is not an honest person either. There is also Golden Lion, Shirji, who originally wanted General Crane to wash his heart and then have someone wash his brain to become a loyal eagle dog of the world government. However, he came up with a better idea and suppressed it. It's just that he needs to wait a few more years for this idea, there's a key thing he needs to find first. Don't worry, take your time. IMM's gaze cast a faint gaze on the bright moon above the sky.